All right, good evening. Now I'd like to bring the regular evening meeting of the Township of Langley Council to order. And the first item is the adoption and receipt of the agenda items. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Davis, second by Councillor Arneson. And all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Move on to the adoption of minutes. There's a public hearing meeting of July 10th, a special council meeting of July 11th, and a special council meeting of July 17th. Councillor Fox moves. Councillor Qualley seconds. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you. There are no presentations, no delegations, no reports to council. We move directly to bylaws for first and second reading. And F1 is rezoning application number 100468, development permit application 100908, and bylaw 5303, 5304. Could I have a motion? Councillor Whitmarsh moves it. Is there a seconder? Have a second on first. Councillor Fox and F1. Okay. Okay, you on? You got that electronic. So we're on F1. You got it there, Councillor Fox?
It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So with this one, Mr. Backen, just before I call for discussion, call a vote. The public hearing for this one, when would it be? When would it be scheduled for? Would it be the next meeting, or would it be scheduled after we're done the Brookswood?
Any of the Brookswood applications would have to be after the resolution of bylaw 5300.
That's automatic.
So that these are the ones that were in stream. So because of the process it underwent and its reconsideration, the motion to hold off is in effect once we're through this stage.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Fox.
So, question through you, if I could, to Mr. Backen. Do we need a formal deferral motion, or would it be an automatic and assumed?
For this and any matter in a similar situation, it's automatic because there's a previous resolution that's in effect. Okay,
thank you.
Any further discussion on F1? Seeing none, I'll call the question. And it carries with Councillor Richter and Councillor Arneson opposed. So move on to bylaws for consideration at third reading and for final adoption. And I1 is residential sales centers, bylaw number 5293. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Long, second by Councillor Davis. Any discussion on I1? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Motion carries unanimously. And move on to bylaws for final adoption. And J1 is liquor licensing policy, bylaw number 5302. Councillor Fox, second. Councillor Sparrow, any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question on J1. Carries unanimously. J2 is rezoning application 100120, and that's bylaw 5149 and bylaw 5150. Christian's Gospel Society. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Sparrow, seconder. Councillor Fox. Discussion on J2. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Oops, sorry. Councillor Fox.
Yeah, this has taken a long time to get to this point, and I was wondering if, through you, there was any explanation from Mr. Seffi or any of the people in community development to explain why this has taken so long and what can we expect? I noticed a sign up there with lots for sale, but so maybe if there's an explanation.
Mr. Seffi.
Thank you, Your Worship. I draw Council's attention to the clerk's note, Your Worship, under the item J2 that makes reference to the proponent's reasoning being related to market feasibility.
Okay. Seems a lot of time doing a market feasibility study with houses or property in Murrayville. That's pretty straightforward to me, but anyway,
okay.
Go for it.
Thank you. I'll call the question now on J2. And it carries with Councillor Arneson opposed. Move on to J3, and this is official community plan amendment and rezoning application 100109. There's two bylaws, 5088 and 5089. Take the motion on that, and then a development permit after that. So can I have a motion, please? Councillor Long, second. Councillor Fox, any discussion? Councillor Richter.
Yeah, was it the The public hearing that we gave on June 23rd, 2014, so it's been over 3 years. I think we should probably have another public hearing on this. Is there a reason why it's been such a long delay?
Mr. Sefi, any explanation on the delay?
Your Worship, the explanation on the clerk's note again makes reference to the property having changed ownership. And that's the primary reason for the delay, because it went through several different, as I understand, sets of owners. And council has the
And they received
discretion.
third reading, and so the prerequisites on third reading, have they all been met?
That's correct, Your Worship. Yes, they have.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll call the question on J3. It carries with Councillor Richter, Councillor Arneson, Councillor Davis opposed. And the development permit, number 100738. Could I have a motion, please, on the development permit? Councillor Sparrow, seconder. Councillor Qualley, discussion on the development permit. Seeing none, I'll call the question. And it carries with Councillor Richter, Councillor Arneson, and Councillor Davis opposed. And we'll move on to, oh, look at that. We're at the Mayor and Council report. Part I look forward to in every meeting. Good evening, everyone. Welcome here. This will be Council's last meeting prior to the summer break. And I'm sure everyone's looking forward to some sunny vacation days. And the last few weeks have been busy with plenty of local events happening. On Wednesday, June 28th, was the Langley Education Center's graduation ceremony at Chief CPAS Theatre, which I was fortunate enough to attend. And on Wednesday, July 12th, I welcomed medical students touring the Township of Langley. They were visiting the fort, where I met up with some very eager students. And these are actually students, and these are interns who are working in some of our hospitals and are looking to set up practices in communities throughout the region. And the Langley family practice, we're trying to lure them to Langley. So great to see those young doctors, and hopefully some of them will make their home here as in their practice. On July 13th was the Urban Development Institute's summer social, and it was held at Tanglebank Gardens in Abbotsford. The weekend of July 15th was the 105th annual Aldergrove Fair Days. This was another great year for the event, with sunny weather and a ton of events happening over the 3 days. The annual parade, the quick draw, the chili cook-off, and some great music was provided for free. A huge thank you to the organizers, volunteers, and Bob and Karen Long for the many hours of work that they put in ensuring that the event is a success each and every year. So 105 years, it's the longest running agriculture fair in British Columbia. So something to be proud of for Aldergrove, and it's all to do with the volunteers. On Thursday, July 20th, was the 105th National Convention of the Langley Elks. The opening reception was held at the George Preston Recreation Centre, and I was pleased to attend and bring greetings on behalf of the township. This was a historic first for this organization, as one of our own local residents, Elk Deborah Sellenbach, was installed as the head of the order and became the first female Grand Exalted Ruler in over 100 years for the Elks. So congratulations to Deborah. On Friday, July 21st, the International Association of Firefighters Local 4550 held a drive to collect food, clothing, money, and pet food to deliver to those experiencing the devastating effects of the BC wildfires. And they were at Costco, and I popped by to say hello and really appreciate the efforts that they've done. On Saturday, July 22nd, was the garden party and ribbon cutting at Michonne House. It's the first ever museum dedicated to the Langley Memorial Hospital. The official launch date marked 70 years since the first footings were laid at Langley Memorial Hospital, known then as Cottage Hospital. So there's now a display at Michonne House on some of the collection from those early days at the hospital. The evening of July 22nd was the Langley Minor Lacrosse Recognition Ceremony at the Langley Events Centre, and I was pleased to assist with handing out trophies to these young athletes. And I think they had 21 teams from all over BC competing. So upcoming events. The amphitheatre at the Willoughby Community Park has begun its summer concert series in celebration of Canada 150. The events begin at 7 o'clock on Thursday evenings and will run until the end of August, and they're free. So there's some great acts that are coming out there, musical acts and that sort of thing. So recommend everyone try and take a few of those in. There's going to be a golf tournament that's been organized by Redwoods. They've donated the course, and that's going to be on August the 1st, and all the money is collected will be going to the Red Cross to assist with those who have suffered loss during the fires in our Caribou. BC Brigade Days is in Fort Langley, August 5th to 7th, and Langley Environmental Partner Society is Demonstration Garden Blackberry Bake Off is August 17th, and we're looking for judges. Now that is a good one to judge, because you eat a lot of good blackberry pie.
You know who's judging it?
Are you in there? Oh yeah, I figured you would. No, that's...
You'll have fun. It's great.
So with that, is there anything that council would like to add? Okay, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you very much. And we go to other business, and I have, okay, I'm going to clear the queue, and Councillor Richter, I'm going to put you on. You have a couple of items in other business. Councillor Richter.
Yes, whereas tandem parking has caused many problems with on-street parking in the township, be it resolved the council directs staff to bring forward the necessary bylaw amendments to eliminate tandem parking in multifamily and other zones. I so move.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Arneson seconds it. Discussion regarding Councillor Long.
Well, I need to be very respectful here. The motion's been seconded, so we have to discuss it. But I mean, there is a tremendous value to having tandem parking in certain housing complexes. I don't think you can just whitewash the whole place and say it doesn't work. I don't know what proof there is that tandem parking is the reason that there's parking issues. It could be that every kid has a couple of cars, or everybody in the family has a car. There's all kinds of reasons that add up to parking issues. So to throw tandem parking, under the bus kind of thing, it just doesn't make sense to me, at least without some kind of proof that that's what the cause is. So I think there's a great value in it. My wife and I feel that tandem parking is perfect for us. We have two little cars, and whoever's at the end of the driveway gets to drive that one. So I make sure that the convertible's at the end of the driveway all the time.
Thank you. Councillor Fox.
Yeah, I'd like to make a deferral motion to a CPC to discuss this further, because I think that in the context of what we discussed this afternoon with the parking, but I think if we want to be a walkable community, we don't want to pave more over. And it's going to mean wider garages in order to accommodate more cars. And I think that there are neighborhoods that we want walkable. We want to encourage people to get out of their cars. We want to encourage people to walk to the transit. So, for example, on 86th and 204th, tandem parking makes complete sense to me, because the Carvalth Exchange is less than a half a block away. And a lot of people are buying there because of the commuter opportunities that exist there. So tandem parking makes sense. So maybe what we need to define is more effectively high commuter zones where tandem parking will actually work, because a family only has maybe one car. And for a one-car family, it's perfect. I don't know if it works in all areas. I think people should have choice. So I think to just make a blanket statement that we have no more tandem parking without a discussion, a fruitful discussion and some input from staff to look at what the options are, I think is premature. So I'd like to make a deferral motion to a CPC meeting.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Whitmer seconds. I'll open up discussion on deferral. If you wish to speak to that. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I think it's a very good topic for a Council Priority Committee discussion and a staff report. Further to, as Councillor Fox has said, we've heard more about our parking thoughts and expectations in our community. One of the things I would like to know is the cost implications. So if we are, because I notice different communities have different formulas to figure out how many they will allow. We have a certain number ourselves. But the degree to which that would affect affordability, and if we were asking for more parking spaces, I'd be interested to know for multifamily residential. So I definitely am supportive of a staff report and some further discussion.
Wally?
Thanks. I'll support the motion that Councillor Fox is making. I think the blanket statement of no tandem parking anywhere in the municipality is a bit of a baby in bathwater situation. I think there are places where it can make sense. And now that we're starting to look at other car sharing options and different things, I think there are places where tandem can make sense. So I think that there can be perhaps some adjustments made to our policies around those parking requirements. So I'd be interested to hear from staff what they say a way to improve what we already have.
Thank you. Councilor Sparrow?
I guess I will support this if the intention is that the topic of tandem parking or parking in general is sent to a CPC. I wouldn't be supportive of the discussion of how we can eliminate it and how that can be done. I think we'd be going around in circles in that, because I think it's a very short-sighted type of a comment to make that eliminating tandem parking completely from our community is the solution. Tandem parking provides for a mix of housing affordability for people. There are many single parents or first-time buyers who are looking to get into the community who need to be able to afford to live here. And the units that provide tandem parking are generally the more affordable units in multifamily versus the larger double-car garage units. So I think that there is huge ramifications that come from sweeping motion as this one is, which is to just eliminate it completely. And I think I would be happy to hear from staff to go into more detail on that and explain to us the ramifications of affordability and why tandem parking units are there, and what would come of it if we were to eliminate them. So I will support sending this concept, the idea of tandem parking to a CPC to discuss further, but I'm not going to support eliminating it from the community. So.
Thank you. Councilor Long?
Well, I don't think this is the correct way to do it. I think we should vote the motion down, and we can talk about anything we like at the council priorities meeting. But to have a motion live such as this, I don't agree with that at all. If you want to increase the cost of housing for people, make it less affordable, you want to maybe increase the amount of impervious area in the township so that we didn't starve our aquifers. If you want to, make use of an automobile more attractive, have more room for parking, then you would support a motion like this. But if you're not into any of those things, then it shouldn't even be considered. So I won't vote against. I will vote against it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? So no. It's on deferral.
The motion is
sure.
read
The
down.
deferral. Ms. Bauer? The deferral motion.
The motion would be that this matter be referred to a future CPC meeting.
Okay.
Out of the motion,
The issue. The topic. Yeah.
the motion.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to call the question.
Well, point of information,
Okay.
Your Worship, this is a big difference. Talking about the notion of it at a CPC, I'm sure we can all agree with. Referring this motion, which is to ban it, to CPC is what we're voting on.
But that is the topic, and so a discussion could be around banning or not banning it. Mr. Backen, does this?
Your Worship, we're taking it as being the matter, which would include the subject matter and the motion itself. However, it would go back to the mover of the motion to indicate what their intention was. That is the mover of the referral.
The context.
Let me cancel this vote. Let me get your mic on. Okay, Councilor.
To defer a discussion related to the value of tandem parking being in or not in any rezoning application that is presented to council. Does that make sense?
So what is the definition of the motion?
Don't worry.
Yeah, Mr. Backen. Yeah.
So I think it's the same thing as saying that the subject matter and the motion be referred to a CPC matter for discussion.
I can buy that, yeah.
That's what it says. So, and the subject matter and the motion, so it can be deferred. Okay, so I'm going to call the question on that. Carries with Council Long opposed. Let me get this clear, and I'm going to start over again. Councillor Richter, you have the second item on other business.
Okay, whereas the township is one of the few municipalities that currently does not have a township-wide tree protection bylaw, and whereas trees are an important environmental asset in the community, be it resolved that the Brookswood Fern Ridge tree bylaw be applied to all of the township. I so move.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Arneson seconds it. Councillor Fox?
I guess my first question is, we don't have a Brookswood Fern Ridge tree bylaw. Right now, we have nothing. So I'm not sure what the reference is here. The second piece to that is, are we assuming that this is going to cover the ALR? Because if it is, I think we need to go out to our citizens, 75% of whom live in the ALR, who live under a different jurisdictional rule because they are, for right to farm, allowed to cut trees. I live in the ALR, and I don't think that any of myself or my neighbors would be in favor of a tree bylaw that says I can cut 2 trees in a year. I think we have to differentiate between the two. So I think, again, we need to have a discussion about whether we're talking lands within the urban containment boundary or lands outside the urban containment boundary. We also need a discussion, and help me with this through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Sefi, because there are 2 types of tree cutting that, well, there's probably more than 2, but one is to take down a diseased tree with a bylaw context, and the other is through the development process. Am I correct in saying that? Which has a completely different set of rules than trying to take down a tree because I want to take down a tree. So I think we need to put this whole thing into a contextual discussion, and we need to deal with the ALR inside the urban containment boundary and how community development works with their tree application and how a tree bylaw across the whole rest of the internal urban containment boundary is different than what we have now. And so, again, I think we need to defer this to a discussion, and I would defer it to a staff presentation, first off, on what our existing rules are and how they imply and impact with tree retention, if you want to call it.
So you're making a motion to refer this to staff to come back
for a staff presentation,
or on? But why don't we just we could defer this to a CPC, so at least we get this started, or we could just vote this down, or we could defer this to after the Brookswood. Once we get the Brookswood tree bylaw on the books, it's not even like you say, it's not even on the books yet. So
okay, so I would refer this then to at a time when bylaw 5301 has been accepted for discussion, after bylaw 5301 has been adopted by council.
To defer this motion until after?
After 5301.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Councillor Davis seconds. Discussion on the deferral. Councillor Long.
Well, here we go again. First of all, we don't even have a bylaw to defer, so I mean, I'm not sure why we're throwing all these motions that are now live for further discussion. So I guess when you vote for this, Council, that means that you're supportive of the concept and you want to discuss it some more. If you're supportive of the concept of removing tandem parking, then I guess we'll discuss it, because it looks like that's the road it's going to go down to. If you're supportive of a township-wide tree bylaw, then I guess we're going to discuss it some more. And I don't know if we even have one. We don't even have that bylaw yet until, what, September the 12th, and to be even discussed, or maybe even after that, actually. So I really caution that all of these deferrals are simply keeping the concept alive, which means that there must be some agreement on council, and I don't agree with it. So I'll be voting against this one as well.
Thank you. Councillor Richter, on the deferral?
Well, technically we do have a bylaw, 5300. It was just deferred to some future point in time, which could or couldn't be after September 12th. But we do have a bylaw. It has been presented. The public has commented on it. Seems like the comments we've been getting back from the public are generally very favorable about the bylaw. It's not totally restrictive to people cutting down trees. And as Councillor Fox was saying, we know we can't put a tree bylaw in place on ALR land because we don't control the right to use ALR land, but we do control how the other trees are, or how the other lands and trees are used. And there seems to have been quite a rash of trees being cut down over the last few weeks, whether they're on private property or street trees or whatever, but these trees are coming down and the community is upset about losing the trees. And the only way we're going to be able to stop loss of important, significant trees is to have a tree bylaw to protect them. Now, I'm not opposed to deferring this discussion till after bylaw 5300 has been voted on, or 5301, sorry, has been voted on, and to getting a staff presentation. But I really think that more and more, the feedback that's coming from the community is we need to do something about this, and this is one way to do something about it.
Councillor Qualley?
I'm not going to support the referral back to staff or the deferral till after 5301 because I think 5301 has nothing to do with this. I'm not going to support the initial motion because I think the motion says that the Brookswood Fernridge Tree Law be applied to all of the township. Well, we know that we can't apply that bylaw to all of the townships, so I can't support this motion. I would be happy after 53.1 or if 5301 passes to entertain a discussion through CPC or a staff presentation around what a bylaw could look like that would be more suitable for the entire municipality. But 5301's been customized for Brookswood for a specific part of the community, and there are pieces of it that would or would not perhaps apply to the rest of the community. So I'm not going to support either. I think after the dust settles around 5301, we can figure out how to move forward if we want to move forward. But this motion is so vague, and the referral doesn't make sense in the context of 5301 to me.
Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I think my overall wanting to support this is just to start the conversation about a tree protection bylaw. We spent a lot of time discussing this in the past, and I personally have brought forward a couple of notices of motions to try and address the situation. And I do agree with Councillor Richter that this is something that the community is becoming very interested in, and I do get a lot of correspondence regarding concerns. So I understand that our jurisdiction isn't 100%, but I think more and more our tree inventory is based on both development and redevelopment is really without any prescriptive mechanism to stop the erosion. We definitely are losing our tree canopy. And so personally, I would rather, despite the exact wording of what the motion says, I mean, maybe that's not kosher to do this, but I still support going forward as soon as possible because I don't want to have it hinged on whether or not that particular bylaw gets endorsed, because I think that we should be looking at all opportunities to create a bylaw that would be fair and equitable to have it apply across the township. So I am supportive of actually having this as a conversation at a future CPC meeting.
Councillor Long?
When you start the conversation, you start the chainsaws.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call the question on N2. Oops. And the deferral fails with Councillor Whitmarsh, Mayor Froese, Councillor Qualley, Councillor Sparrow, Councillor Long opposed. So we're back to the main motion. And there's a speaker's list here. Councillor Davis on the main motion.
You know, I think I'm okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Councillor Arneson on the main motion? No. Councillor Whitmarsh on the main motion? No. Councillor Long on the main motion? I'm just going through speakers. Okay, thank you.
Happy to vote against.
So I'll call the question on N2. And the motion fails with Councillor Fox, Councillor Arneson, Councillor Whitmarsh, Mayor Froese, Councillor Qualley, Councillor Sparrow, Councillor Davis, Councillor Long opposed. And so now we'll move on to N3, and this is notice of motion by Councillor Qualley. Councillor Qualley, you have the floor.
Thank you. Do you want me to read the whole thing or just the... I'll read the beginning. Whereas Council has voted to send the amended draft Brookswood Fernridge 217 Community Plan to public hearing on September 12, 2017. Whereas the residents of the Cedar Creek Manufactured Home Park are very concerned about their designation within the existing 1987 Brookswood Community Plan and the draft Brookswood Fernridge 217 Community Plan. Whereas it is possible that the draft Brookswood Fernridge 217 Community Plan may not be approved and adopted by Council, and whereas Council has unanimously stated that they would like to hear from the public and the landowner in order to consider designation of the Cedar Creek Manufactured Home Park as MHP, therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to start the process to designate the Cedar Creek Manufactured Home Park as MHP under the 1987 Brookswood Community Plan to ensure that should the draft Brookswood Fernridge 217 Community Plan not be adopted, that Council, after hearing from the residents and owner, can provide an MHP designation to the park so that it will be protected with the MHP designation under the 1987 Brookswood Community Plan.
It's moved, seconded by Councillor Sparrow. Discussion on N3? Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I'd like to thank Councillor Qualley for bringing this forward. My thought about this, however, is I would like to make a small amendment, I believe, which will create more certainty and timeliness regarding the whole process. And so at an appropriate time, we'll add that as an amendment if you're going to go forward.
If you wish to make the amendment, now's the time to make the
Okay,
amendment.
thank you. So my motion to amend, I'm just going to read it and then I'll send it to Ms. Bauer. And that staff be directed to proceed concurrently with the necessary amendment to the 27 Brookswood Community Plan as amended by Law 5300 and the 1987 Brookswood Official Community Plan to ensure that the Cedar Creek Manufactured Home Park is designated as a manufactured home park in both plans, regardless of which one is or remains in full force and effect, and provided further that all public engagement and public hearing processes for each proceed concurrently.
It's the same motion.
Same.
It's all in there.
No, it's not.
I'll second it.
I don't see a difference in this and what's already in here. Mr. Bakken, do you see
Worship.
Maybe you can help me with
Your Worship, there is a motion to proceed with an amendment to 5300. There is now an amendment to proceed, a motion to proceed with the 1987 plan. So Councillor Arneson's motion is that the change to both 5300 and the 87 plan occur concurrently so that there's an overlap. So when we come to the actual adoption, one will fall away depending upon whether 5300 or the 87 plan is adopted.
Okay. That's what this has, isn't it? Basically, this one says.
But they're to occur concurrently.
Okay.
So
I don't know where the emergency is here. That has to be done.
no,
concurrently,
different
so,
question.
Yeah. So concurrently, that this process, we're only meeting, like, we're going to take a break. We're going to be meeting in September 11th. It's going to be vote probably October 2nd. We'll have a pretty good idea what's going to happen to the Brookswood plan by then. So by putting this motion on, is it supposed to, we're starting on September 11th with this process? I'm not sure.
The addition, the designation of the Brookswood of Cedar Creek as MHP is to occur immediately following resolution of the bylaw 5300. We have to have that direction established. And so we have the first motion that's contained from the previous council meeting, that at that date we start with 5300 going forward. This one says that 1987 should go concurrent. There's now a motion to do it under the 87 plan, and then this amendment says that should happen concurrently, so it goes in tandem, not later or not earlier.
Okay, and there's a seconder to it. Councillor Richter seconds it, so opening up the amendment. Councillor Long on the amendment.
Well, we're sure trying to mess this one up. There already is a motion as part of the public hearing, as one of the amendments, that the staff proceed in changing the designation to MHP. I suppose this might be a move to say, well, gee, let's do it now so that we don't. I mean, you know what? It doesn't seem like a proper process at all. I hate to say this, but it is definitely not cricket. Because this is almost setting yourself up saying, well, you know, I can vote against this and I can vote against that and still do something for the mobile home park. It's already been moved that following consideration of 5300 that we would move directly into the MHP redesignation, right? So then this can wait until let's see what happens. We're supposed to go into the public hearing with a completely open mind. And I suppose, depending what councillors will vote, some are voting for, some are not, then we have to decide what the disposition of those poor folks are going to be after that. But this just adds more confusion to it. I don't think you should even allow the motion, Your Worship.
Thank you. It's allowed. We can vote accordingly. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Long on this one. I feel like we've already dealt with this topic in the last meetings. We have a motion already to deal with this after we consider 5300. Whether 5300 passes or not, we will be considering this. The way the motion is written here, it feels to me like we've already in our minds designated it as MHP without having the benefit of the public hearing, without hearing from both the residents and the proponent or the owner of the property, and that it's kind of putting it the cart before the horse, as we say. I think we should leave it and have the public hearing, get all the information from the public hearing, and then move forward as we've already decided. And so I would not pass this.
Thank you. Councillor Richter.
Mr. Backen, perhaps you can provide a clarification. It seems to me that the motion that we passed about the Cedar Creek Manufactured Home Park was that should bylaw 5300 be adopted, that after that adoption occurs, a process would begin to redesignate in the new 2017 plan that park would no longer be a single or would no longer be 7,000 square foot lots, but would be redesignated as manufactured home park.
That's correct. The amendment was to go forward. The amendment to the bylaw 5300 that was separated out and severed was that we proceed upon passage of 5300 for a designation that would be MHP for that location.
Okay, and so the amendment that Councillor Arneson has put on is saying that we do it concurrently with the September 12th public hearing.
Correct, but we have to go back one step. There's then this new motion, we'll call it the 1987 plan amendment, that says that the designation should take place under the 1987 plan. And there was no time specified in that, although presumably it would start very quickly. Councillor Arneson's motion is that the amendment to the 87 plan should proceed concurrently with the amendment to 5300 if it's adopted, the effect of which is that if 5300 is adopted, this motion could be redundant. If 5300 is not adopted, the default to the 1987 plan would occur simultaneously with that process, so they would be going in tandem.
So legally, it's not out of order, what
No,
the amendment is suggesting?
It wasn't ruled out of order. The motion's on the floor.
No, but legally, it's something that we can do.
Yeah, so we have one stream, 5300. We have second stream, 1987, and the result of each of those will be to designate Cedar Creek as mobile home park, and this specifies that it is to be done concurrently, although only one will be necessary because at the time they proceed, the resolution of 5300 will have occurred.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. My sole intention in putting this forward was really to create the most timely and streamlined process in light of the circumstances. And so in collaboration with staff, I put this together in the hopes that that would be something that would resolve the matter sooner rather than later. So that was just my intention.
Councillor Qualley.
Thank you. So, I mean, I didn't have a chance to speak to the main motion before the amendment was accepted, but in the debate around 5300, Council voted unanimously that we'd like to change the designation of the manufactured home park to MHP. That's why I brought this forward. The motion that we moved around 5300 before referring it back for another public hearing was only applicable to 5300. The intent of this motion is that if bylaw 5300 fails again, that the 1987 plan be designated with this MHP designation. So regardless of how Brookswood passes or fails, regardless, the people who we agreed unanimously needed to be protected in this are going to ultimately be protected in this. So I'm not going to accept, or I'm not going to support the amendment. I think it's captured in here, and the intention is to have the MHP designation regardless of which side of the coin the bylaw 5300 lands on.
Thank you. Councillor Fox.
Yeah.
On the amendment.
Surely there's an easier way to word the amendment. I think we got ourselves caught up in a whole lot of wordsmithing here. Can't we make it, therefore, be a resolve that staff be directed to start the process to designate a Cedar Creek Manufactured Home Park as MHP concurrently under the 1987 Brookswood Community Plan, and the draft Brookswood Fern Ridge 217 plan, after hearing from the residents and owners, to allow the MHP designation to the park so that it will be protected regardless of the outcome. Something like that. I mean,
One more word in there than the other one. I'm not sure.
no, actually, mine is actually even shorter than the original motion. But the context of concurrent and just some word, I guess my question then is the original motion versus the amendment. Is concurrence not implied in the original motion? Through you? I thought concurrence was implied because it says under the 1987 Brookswood Community Plan, the last 5 words.
Back.
So I'm just,
I'm not sure there's not a distinction without a difference, Your Worship. I think both plans would actually go very quickly, but I think the intent of the amendment is to make sure that they go in unison, so there is no overlap or gap. The basic concept is 5300. The original bylaw, the 2017 Brookswood bylaw, is after the decision is made, if it is passed, we will go forward and we will designate Cedar Creek as MHP. This motion says under the 1987 plan, we'll go forward and designate Cedar Creek as MHP. The amendment is that process should occur concurrently. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Councillor Sparrow?
So is that it? Councillor Fox is not gonna, that wasn't a, because I agree. I find the amendment, the wording on it, very hard to wrap my head around. Like, I agree with Councillor Fox in just inserting the words concurrently and making that clear so that we have that. But I find the amendment really confusing. So I guess if it's left that way, I won't support the amendment, and I support the intent of the main motion, and that's, I guess, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Long?
Well, I was going to say point of information. I don't think Mr. Mackin was correct on that, and if he was, then we made an error when we did this motion, because I don't know as you'd have to pass 5300 to consider. The question was asked, and I asked it, if we couldn't simply add the mobile home park to the public hearing. The explanation was no, you'd have to rescind first and second reading first or something like that. So that got a bit complicated. So they said, well, best thing to do is go through the public hearing on 5300 and then move into that. So I would think the wording, rather than being passing 5300, if 5300 has been considered, that staff would move directly in. So we probably should check the wording. But yeah, I think if you check the wording, it says
Adopted, yeah.
Adopted. Well, then that was a mistake we probably made at that meeting. Probably should have said after being considered, just like the 2006 or 2004 resolution of council saying that the whole plan needed to be considered before any development was going to be accepted in Brooks. So we got mucked up on that one too. Bottom line is, Your Worship, and let's be frank here, the only reason that we want to entertain these amendments is because there's certain people on council that feel maybe they're not interested in the 5300 plan, and this is some way to cover themselves, right? I mean, I really, really feel that, because right now we have a process that's no point of order to you.
Let's discuss the motion, the amendment, please.
The motion is very, very relevant, Your Worship, because why would you need any of these motions if we're going to go through on September the 12th with an open mind into a public hearing about Brookswood? Then you'd have no fears. But if you've got some fears, I guess you need these motions to cover yourself.
Fair enough. Thank you. Councillor Richter?
Yeah, well, again, I'd like to ask Mr. Backen's clarification on this. My understanding was that we would do 5300 on September 12th, and if 5300 passed on September 12th, staff would start right away.
Voting on it on September 12th.
Staff would start right away with the preparations for a second public hearing that would have to be held after the September 12th public hearing that would just look at the manufactured home park designation.
There's no motion on September 12th. It's a public hearing. The motion is for after the public hearing for bylaw 5300
right,
to come back. Excuse me, let me
12th.
finish. Come back when there's a full council meeting, which the earliest is October.
Your Worship,
2nd
I think Councillor Richter, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying, and I think I can simplify it. The motion was to have a public hearing on 5300 on September the 12th. There's a subsequent motion that says it'll be considered for third reading on October the 2nd. The amendment contained in the bylaw that's being sent to public hearing, effectively reconsidered, is that once that's adopted, we will proceed to redesignate the Cedar Creek Mobile Home Park as MHP, but that's contingent upon 5300 being adopted. The motion by Councillor Qualley says under the 1987 plan, we should start the process as quickly as possible to ensure that it designates Cedar Creek as MHP. There's that process that's out there. It may be implicit, but it's certainly silent on the timing. The amendment from Councillor Arneson is that the process for the designation of Cedar Creek under the 1987 plan as MHP specifies it should happen concurrently with the other process I mentioned. So we have three elements: the original motion, the new motion, and the amendment that goes to the timing of the consideration or the timing of the process for both.
So, Mr. Backen, just as a clarification, if we just went with the motion here that Councillor Qualley's put on, would we be having a public hearing on September 12th to deal with the Brookswood Fernrich 1987 plan and the designation? Or would that public hearing be occurring at a separate date?
Both would have to occur at a separate date. September the 12th can't deal with the designation of the Cedar Creek Mobile Home Park. It would occur after October the 2nd, and when that public hearing occurred, there is a good chance they would be having been done concurrently, but this requires they be done concurrently. I think that's the distinction.
So Councillor Arneson's amendment is just saying whenever we do that second public hearing just on the manufactured home park, that it be for either the 2017 plan or the 1987 plan. Is that correct?
I think it's trying to provide that level of certainty, yes.
Okay. So basically it's clarifying that there's not going to have to be a third public hearing.
Correct. And the question is asked, is that likely? It depends on the timing of the process. This simply means it's required.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to call a question on the amendment.
No, I have a point of order.
What's your point of order?
How can you make an amendment to a motion that's already been passed? Right? You've already passed a motion.
No.
We've sent it to third reading.
Yeah.
We sent it to public hearing. A motion that includes the disposition of the MHP of that.
Okay. Okay, but I've ruled
So
it.
now this motion actually changes that. How do you do
No,
that?
I've ruled that the amendment. We're talking about the amendment. The amendment's in order, so we're voting on the amendment now. So please vote. So the amendment fails with Councillor Fox, Councillor Whitmarsh, Mayor Froese, Councillor Qualley, Councillor Sparrow, Councillor Long opposed. So now we're back to the main motion, and there's a speakers list. Councillor Davis on the main motion. Councillor Richter on the main motion.
So the main motion is essentially saying that after October 2nd, regardless of how the vote goes on October the 2nd, there will be another public hearing on the manufactured home park, whether it's under the 87 plan or the 2017 plan. Is that the effect?
That's correct. The process must begin, and we'll do our best to ensure that if this motion passes, that they happen at the same time. It's not required, but we'll certainly try to make that work.
And Mr. Backham, there still has to be a bylaw that has to come forward to council for first and second reading prior to the.
Right.
So the process that we have to follow. We don't just automatically go to a public hearing. We need the bylaw to deal with the change in the OCP.
Correct. There'll be first and
That's the
second
first
reading
step.
in both
First, second
scenarios.
reading, and then the public hearing. That's the process. We don't automatically go to public hearing. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to support this, although I do think the wording presupposes that the 2017 plan is going to fail. But I do think the people in Cedar Creek need the protection.
Okay, Councillor Long.
Can I get an answer to the question? How can we be making a motion that affects a motion that's already been passed by council?
Your Worship, the process for Cedar Creek deals with it independently of 5300. It's not an amendment to 5300. That was the original intent. We stopped that process and instead said there would be a concurrent process, but it would not be going to be dependent upon hearing the same process as 5300. So in effect, it's a separate stream.
But it was already moved and passed.
But that wasn't. That's. I agree with Mr. Baca. It's separate to this. So, we can. Just to add, if this motion fails, there's nothing to say that a motion like this, can't come back to council after 5300 has been considered. So, that still is an option. It's not contingent on doing it today, but that's up to council if they wish to. Councillor Qualley?
Well, I'd just like to argue that there's no contention in this motion about whether it's going to pass or fail. The motion says it is possible. It is possible that it will fail. It is possible that it will pass. We have a contingency plan in place for if 5300 passes. Then the intention of this motion is a contingency plan in place if it doesn't. And so we get the exact same result one way or another. There's no contention in here that says or there's no presupposition that it's going to pass or fail. I'm trying to cover both sides of it so that the people in this Cedar Creek Manufactured Home Park understand that going forward, as we've already agreed unanimously, this is important to us and it'll get fixed in a very timely manner after we've heard from the public and from the landowner in this. So, the contention that I've already made up my mind isn't true at all. This is simply trying to make sure that we achieve the goal we all agreed we wanted to have after the vote on October 12th or October 2nd, whatever the date is. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question on N3. The motion carries. Councillor Whitmarsh, Mayor Froese, Councillor Long opposed. Is there any other business?
Move termination.
Councillor Fox moves termination. Councillor Davis seconds it. All those in favor? Opposed? This meeting is terminated. We will begin the public hearing in just a few minutes, and just wait for staff to